All right, first of all, welcome to the Whitsundays. We're sitting here today with David Crisafulli, who is the leader of the opposition, and also Amanda Camm, who's our state member. I guess the question that everyone would love to know first, David, is if you are elected this year, what will it mean for our region?
Firstly, an end to the four big crises that are really impacting people across the state, but they're really pronounced here in the Whitsundays. So that's youth crime, health, housing and cost of living. All of those have an underlying real emphasis in the region. I've been coming to Airlie for a long time. I've never seen homeless people living on the foreshore. Never. And to see that is just a window into the soul of how bad the housing crisis is at the moment. So I used my budget reply speech this week to unpack our solutions to the housing crisis. And I think all of those are the four issues that Queenslanders tell me they want action on, and I can promise you they're going to get it.
Brilliant. And Amanda, obviously you've been working in opposition for a long time now. What will it mean to you for this to change and for you to finally have, I guess, a bit more support?
Well, across our region, we know what we have to offer the state, and we've been ignored for a really long time by the current state government. So if we are fortunate enough to come to government and for David to be the leader, he has a real passion for tourism, he understands this region, and for us to have a real seat at the table is going to be really critical, I think, to not just in the next year or two, but in the next generation of what we see here in tourism infrastructure, in the lead up to the Olympic Games, in ensuring that we can deliver on those four priorities, because we know when you can't get a house, you can't attract a workforce, and that's so critical to our industries here in the Whitsundays.
And you announced quite recently that there'll be 1 million houses by 2044. How are you guys going to achieve that? What's the plan?
It's about supply, and it starts with getting young people into a home. And I want young Queenslanders to genuinely believe that they can own a home, because that dream has been taken away from them. We've got the lowest home ownership rate in the country in Queensland, 63.5%. It's the lowest in the country, and within a decade I want to go from last to first. So we spoke about what that looks like. So that involves things like removing stamp duty on any first home buyer buying or building their first brand new home. Like, that's pretty huge, right? It's been a long time since the government abolished a tax. We just want to send the signal to the market that we're serious about getting young people into a home. We're going to remove a restriction that means if you buy your first home or build your first home, at the moment in Queensland you can't rent out a room, otherwise you lose that stamp duty exemption. I just think, why would you do that to a young person? If a young person can get a couple of $100 a week for a room, that might be the difference between them being able to make their interest repayments or not. So we're going to remove that. We also are going to embark on a shared equity scheme. So if somebody has under $105,000 as a single or under $130,000 as a couple, we want to give them the ability for the state to partner with them to help take a 25% stake in an existing home or a 30% stake in a new home. But there's also a number of things we want to do on the social and community housing sector to try and get vulnerable people into a home. We're going to partner with councils to develop an infrastructure plan, which is $2 billion over the next 4 years to get more supply. It's all about more supply. And when I listened this morning to a number of the businesses who say we could employ another dozen people tomorrow, but they can't because they can't house them, something needs to be done.
Absolutely. Amanda, roads have been a point of contention for a long time, whether that's Hamilton Plains overflowing every wet season or the Bruce Highway where roadworks were abandoned for several months, even though we had to go down to 40 without roadworks actually taking place. So what do you hope to achieve if there is a change of government? How this will change for you?
Well, we're committed to delivering those road projects. The Hamilton Plains project has been funded now for multiple years by the federal government. The state government has failed in their obligation to meet and co-invest in that project. But I'm confident, having spoken with many small businesses, many civil contractors across our region, they want to be part of those projects. We know the funding allocation is now there. We just need to get on and deliver on that. And as for the Bruce Highway, we drive that road each and every day, whether you're taking kids up north to Bowen for sport or for activities or to go to the movies, and whether you're going to Mackay for whether it's sport or health services and things like that. The maintenance backlog on that road is significant. We've got our shadow Transport Minister Steve Minikin will actually be driving that road from Cairns to Coolangatta. He does it every year. He'll be dropping by next month to inspect those issues here locally alongside me, and we're really committed to, we know that the Bruce Highway, it's a lifeline for people to get to and from work, to and from sport, to and from health services. So we're definitely committed to ensuring that we upgrade those maintenance areas that have been so longly neglected. Yeah.
Another issue we wanted to ask you about was healthcare. At the moment there's a doctor shortage. Quite often you can't get into a doctor's appointment for a week or two, and also there's long waiting lists at the hospitals as well, and I know that's something you've mentioned several times too in press releases. How would this change?
Well, on the health front, the first thing we need to do is put local doctors and nurses back in charge. And I've seen the drift back to Brisbane where everything is centrally controlled. I'm a big believer in decentralisation, and I'd rather have somebody who's living and working in the Whitsundays in charge of their hospitals rather than someone in Brisbane, right? So that's the first going in point. We have to make sure the resources hit the front line, and I know that involves making sure that regional Queensland have the quality of services. People deserve a world-class health system no matter where they live. It shouldn't be all centralised in one part of the state. We've got to decentralise it as much as we can. We've committed within 100 days of the election, if we were to win, people will see in real time what's happening in their hospitals, so real data, and that drives that culture of accountability. Amanda has spoken about some of those wait lists. We've got to make sure that people have hope that they can get on those, get surgery, not just be on a waiting list. You mentioned doctors. Now, whilst aged care and doctors are regulated federally, the state has previously proposed a GP's tax, which we call the patient's tax, and that sent shockwaves through GPs who their whole business model would have been eroded. We had a win there by keeping it at bay. What I don't want to see is that reintroduced after the election if the government was returned to a fourth term. So we're fighting hard to make sure that's not something that's on the horizon either.
Wonderful. And you mentioned decentralisation. I guess a concern here locally is that all the money gets spent in the southeast. That's what we continually hear. Yeah, you say that a lot as well, man. How will you ensure that does not happen and that we get our fair share up here?
Well, it is about representation, and certainly in our team we know how important regions are to our state economy. David knows what we contribute to the state coffers, whether it's some of the revenue that we raise out of the tourism industry, whether it's around all our workforce that live and work here but they're out in the Bowen Basin, whether it's around the agriculture that we produce. We are heavy hitters when it comes to our contribution, and I always say we just want to see a little bit of that investment back here, but we've got some exciting vision, I guess, that we want to deliver upon, particularly around tourism infrastructure. We haven't seen real investment by this state government for a long time in opening up opportunities for tourism and new product here, and we're certainly really committed to work with anyone that's got great ideas to bring forward our region and what we think is its full potential.
I'd like people to understand that I get regional Queensland. I grew up on a cane farm in Ingham.
That's right.
And I used to, on weekends, we might have come too early to misbehave from time to time. I understand it's different. It can't be a one-size-fits-all approach out of Brisbane, and you won't get that if government changes, I promise.
Great. In terms of small business, small businesses some have been really struggling since COVID, and possibly not had the support that they might have otherwise needed. How will you be changing this and helping small business out?
By dealing with the underlying issues that are putting such pressure on small and family business. Now, we'll never stand in the way of any of those short-term cost of living measures, right? I understand how much people are hurting. But we've got to deal with the fundamentals. Why is it that electricity has increased in Queensland by 19.9% in the last 12 months, 3 times the national average? Why in the last quarter has Queensland gone up 4.5% and every single other state went backwards, became cheaper? Well, because the underlying system of electricity generation in the state is broken. And we've committed to a maintenance guarantee to make sure that we can drive those power prices down, not just one-off cash handouts, but drive down the structural price. Why are our insurance premiums hiking so much? Well, because youth crime's out of control, and that means that every time somebody smashes your front window or pinches your car, your premiums go up. We've committed to making Queensland safer laws by the end of the year to make sure that we put the rights of the victim ahead of the rights of the offender again. So all of those things are underlying issues that government can do something about, and we're committed to doing that. When I walk into small and family business, I can see the pain in their faces like never before. You know, people in, whether it's retail, hospitality, or someone who's, you know, operating a small pizza shop or a dress shop, you can see there's a level of pain that I've never seen for a long, long time.
Yeah, it's sad, isn't it?
It is.
Talking of work and business, 1 in 3 people in the Whitsundays, as you know, are employed in tourism. How will the new government support these workers and also the industry as a whole?
Well, it's a pretty passionate thought of mine, and it's what Amanda raises all of the time. But if we're being honest, there hasn't been new tourism product developed aside from private sector putting a little bit of money into hotels, etc. There hasn't been that big picture ecotourism developments that we've seen in other parts of the country, like Tassie or indeed overseas in New Zealand, and we're determined to change that. And I want to have a culture in government where people see Queensland as an opportunity to develop ecotourism. And I'm not talking about compromising the environment, the opposite. I want the environment to be enhanced. I want young people to be able to get a job and earn a quid. I want money to be generated that gets put back into the natural environment. But I want a culture where people see Queensland as, oh, I want to go and invest there. And you've got a pretty impressive conga line of projects that could be delivered here. And Amanda,
Skyway being
well,
one of them.
if I had $1 bill for every time Amanda's raised Skyway with me, we could probably fund it personally. But that's important, you know.
It's an exciting project, though.
And you've got private sector that want to do it, that are willing to have a go. And for 8 years, they've been led up the garden path, and I don't want to see that. I want to see people look at Queensland and say we can do business there.
Yeah. We've got our islands as well. We were successful with the island inquiry. There's a key list of recommendations there that the government's yet to fully implement that, you know, really will open up opportunities for some of our beautiful islands and some of those stranded resorts that we've seen just go to rack and ruin over the last decade. So there's real opportunity in our region for tourism.
Wonderful. I think that's it on the formal questions. Is there anything else you wanted to add? Or?
Is it too early for a cocktail?
I know, right? It would be nice, wouldn't it? Well, thank you guys. Thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it.